Hello, everyone, and welcome to Open, the one and only show that opens the Bronx and the rest of the world right to you. I'm your host, Daren Jaime. Today, we'll update you on what's happening in and around our borough as well as across New York City. Coming up on today's show, we'll go front and center discussing the details of a recent lawsuit against New York State Governor Kathy Hochul and what it will mean for New Yorkers moving forward. Then, we'll meet an organization that's investing and strengthening the community. A little later on in the show, we'll also learn about a pitch creation company that's dedicated to creating the most killer pitches for virtually any purpose. And then finally, we'll discuss an upcoming book fair that's aiming and connecting readers and book lovers of all ages. So we encourage you to stay connected because all this and much more is heading your way. We're officially open. Hello, everyone. I'm Daren Jaime, and you are watching Open, and you are watching a live and interactive program that brings the Bronx and New York City straight to you. We also want to welcome our viewers on Manhattan Neighborhood Network, as Open is being broadcast live simultaneously on the MNN channel. You can stay connected to us on our social media platforms at BronxNet TV, and then always on our website at bronxnet.org. Well, some things have been going on through the past week. We'll take you through a couple of them with our Bronx updates. And we start off with local news. New York City has announced new funding to combat illegal dumping, bringing cameras into play. Our Bronx reporter, Brittany Schuyler Albane, has the story.
In the Hunts Point section of the Bronx, Councilmember Rafael Salamanca was joined by Department of Sanitation Commissioner Jessica Tisch, members of Community Board 2, and residents of Hunts Point to announce funding for illegal dumping surveillance cameras. Councilmember Salamanca has allocated $180,000 to install 15 high-definition cameras throughout the community.
The announcement is $180,000 in FY22 that we've allocated, 15 high-definition cameras with license plate reader capacity. The Department of Sanitation will provide manpower to monitor and investigate these cases.
As Mayor Eric Adams fights to clean up unsanitary neighborhoods, Councilmember Salamanca is working to do the same for the 17th District.
As we know, that illegal dumping in the South Bronx and in my district has been an issue for decades, especially in the industrial parts of my district.
Currently, 9 out of the 15 cameras have been installed. The installation will help curb the influx of commercial and residential littering throughout the South Bronx, which, as Salamanca mentions, has been a major issue for decades and is punishable by a $4,000 fine, vehicle impoundment, and even jail time. The cameras have the capacity to locate license plate numbers for further investigation. Since the installment of these cameras, the number of summons given and vehicles impounded has doubled.
The world has changed for you. The New York City Sanitation Department is going to catch you. And when we catch you, you can be locked up, you will get a $4,000 summons, and your vehicle will be impounded. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when.
Councilmember Salamanca hopes with this allocation, residents of the neighborhood will see a decrease in trash throughout the area, leading to a cleaner, safer, and healthier community. Reporting for BronxNet, Brittany Schuyler Albane.
And thank you, Brittany. And in other news, Bronx residents are puzzled about the new MTA bus redesign. Our Bronx reporter Sanji Lopez was on the story, and she has the details right now.
These seniors from Patterson Projects are puzzled about the new MTA bus redesign in the Bronx, which eliminated their local bus stop here on East 143rd Street and Morris Avenue.
The nearest bus stop now is 149th Street, which is 6 blocks away from here. And the next nearest one is 140th Street. It's only 3 blocks away, but as you can see, these are really long blocks.
The preliminary MTA bus redesign project recently changed 13 Bronx bus routes and launched 2 new routes. According to the MTA, the project goal was to improve Bronx bus riders' commutes and provide better service.
We haven't looked at these routes in over a decade, and this was an opportunity to make the changes that our customers were asking for, specifically streamlining service so that we could deliver faster, more efficient bus service to all Bronx residents. We have seen that since the redesign, we have improved bus times across the board of a minimum of 5%.
But community members say one thing was missing from this plan.
The accessibility wasn't part of the plan. We have a lot of seniors in our community that if they were included in this plan and they were engaged in the plan, they would have known that this wasn't the bus stop to take away.
Accessibility is very near and dear to me as a New Yorker with a disability myself who uses a wheelchair to get around. So I understand firsthand how important it is to deliver an accessible system for all our residents, but particularly for our New Yorkers with disabilities. In some instances, that means we have to bring back bus stops to some areas that we removed them.
We know that the MTA is also collecting testimony from community members. What will the MTA do with this collected testimony moving forward?
Well, the first point that I like to make is that the engagement will be continuing. We are now querying our customers on a monthly basis, monthly surveys, so that we can hear from them firsthand how they're engaging with all of our systems and how these redesigns are working for them. We will continue to collect these feedbacks and ultimately continue to make changes as we see fit.
Next thing you know, people waiting for the bus and the bus ride right by. So, they got to do better. Stop making these decisions for us.
If you'd like to submit feedback on the MTA's bus redesign plan, you may do so by visiting tinyurl.com/bxbusfeedback. Reporting for BronxNet, Sanji Lopez.
And thank you, Sanji. We go back to other news. South Bronx community members are fighting for access to the Mott Haven Port Morris waterfront. We bring you back to Brittany Schuyler Albane, who gives us more of these details.
In the South Bronx, community members are fighting for access to the Mott Haven Port Morris waterfront. The Harlem River runs right past the port, but construction and lack of resources mean community members are not allowed entrance to the waterfront. After countless pleas to elected officials, residents are taking matters into their own hands and shedding light on the environmental injustice.
We have had our own waterfront access plan because the community elected leaders keep failing us systematically or don't act with the urgency that we need.
South Bronx Unite held its annual City of Water Day in partnership with the Waterfront Alliance. Throughout the day, attendees were invited to participate in art activities, food, an open mic, and even a tour to see the bare waterfront. Community members were disgusted with the lack of accessibility to the port in order to make room for new housing units that will put lower-income residents at a significant disadvantage. One attendee mentioned a recent incident in which children were jumping off of the rocks to spend time in the water and emphasized that this lack of accessibility could lead to severe consequences.
We really want this land back. We want this to be really part of the public trust doctrine, where public land like this has to be reserved for the public good.
SBU members like co-founder Moncho Lopez equate water to their culture. Lopez grew up in Puerto Rico, where he was always surrounded by water. The lack of accessibility now saddens him.
Someone like me, I was born in Puerto Rico, so the water it's really, really important for me. These are islands. The Bronx is not an island, but most of New York City is. And so water has been like a vital element for the communities.
Without this waterfront, community members could expect a rise in poor health outcomes and an increase in deteriorating public spaces. To get involved in this initiative, follow the link below. Reporting for BronxNet, Brittany Schuyler Albane.
And thank you, Brittany. That is all the time we have for our Bronx updates. We encourage you to stay connected to us because guess what? We got more open coming up right after this. Welcome back to the show. In recent news, New York State Governor Kathy Hochul and the New York State Department of Health issued an emergency regulation granting them the authority to create isolation and quarantine camps for any citizens with any infectious disease without proof of illness. However, a successful lawsuit filed by a New York attorney has halted the governor's measures. Here now to share more details is attorney Bobbie Ann Cox, and the one that is actually responsible for this. And Attorney Bobbie Ann, thank you so much for being with us.
Yes, thank you so much for having me, Daren. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And so walk us through this a little bit now. The governor has made her choice, and then obviously you decided to file legislation in opposition to that. Give us a little bit about what you thought was wrong with what the governor was proposing.
Yes, of course, definitely. So basically what this regulation said was that the Department of Health could pick and choose which New Yorkers they could force to isolate or quarantine. Now, that could have been in your home. They could have locked you down in your home, or that could have been that they removed you from your home and they put you into a facility of their choosing. So you would have no say in where you went. This regulation had no restrictions on the government. Okay, so what I mean by that is they got to decide how long you stayed in quarantine. You could not negotiate your way out of it. You couldn't say, look, I'll take a test. I'll prove to you I don't have this disease that you think I have. Nope, that was not possible under this regulation. There was no age restriction. So they could have come for you or your child or your grandchild or your elderly grandparent. Anybody was subject to this regulation. Because there was no time restriction, they could have literally kept you for days, weeks, months. I mean, it was absolutely no restriction at all. And they didn't have to prove you actually had a communicable disease. They just had to say, well, we think maybe you have, maybe you were exposed, maybe you weren't, who cares? We want to lock you up anyway. They could use law enforcement to help enforce their orders of isolation and quarantine. So you could have gotten a knock on the door from the sheriff or local police saying, I'm sorry, you need to come with us because the Department of Health thinks maybe you have a disease. You know, I mean, it was just so incredibly illegal on multiple levels. It was completely unconstitutional. I knew that as soon as I read the regulation, I had to strike it down. So basically, I'm in this lawsuit, I'm representing a group of New York State legislators, Senator George Borrello, Assemblyman Chris Tague, Assemblyman Mike Lawler, together with a citizens group called Uniting New York State. And the whole premise of the lawsuit is separation of powers. The governor and her Department of Health are in the executive branch. They do not have the power to make this regulation. This is actually a law cloaked as a regulation, and only the legislature can make law. So that means our elected representatives in the New York State Senate and the New York State Assembly, they are our voice in government, and they are the ones who can make laws. That's what the Constitution says. And so when the governor and Department of Health did this, they have breached the Constitution. They have left their domain of executive branch of government, and they've crossed over into the legislative lawmaking branch of government. And you're not allowed to do that. When that happens, we see tyranny as a result. and it's the people that suffer when there's tyranny. You can't have the governor and unelected bureaucrats in an agency like the Department of Health making law. They can't make a regulation that overrides a law, which is what they did here, because we have law, Section 2120 of the public health law. We've had it for 70 years. And that's how you want, if you want to have somebody who has a disease and they're not properly being safe in the way that they conduct themselves, then you can quarantine that person. But that law that we've had for 70 years has many due process protections built into it. And this regulation, no, it stripped out all the due process protections, and it just conflicts with the law, conflicts with the Constitution, and you can't do that. So thankfully, the judge ruled in our favor, and he agreed. This is not something the executive branch can do.
Right. And right now, as you have one, and if things have gone in your favor, we do understand it's not over yet. The governor's filed an appeal, and you're going to a appellate court. Talk to me about that and your thoughts there.
Right. So you're exactly right. The Attorney General, Letitia James, that's who represents the governor in the Department of Health. She has filed a notice of appeal, which means that they do intend to appeal this decision. It will go up to the appellate division in the 4th Department. And basically now they're going to try to argue to get that court to overturn the ruling of the New York State Supreme Court Judge Ron Plotz, and they're going to try and get that overturned so that the governor and the Department of Health can get their power back that they gave themselves illegally to forcibly isolate and quarantine New Yorkers. So it's really important that we defend this appeal. In fact, Senator Borrello and Assemblyman Chris Teague, Assemblyman Mike Lawler, they're calling on New Yorkers to step up and speak up and to write and email and call the governor and the Attorney General, Letitia James, and tell them, we don't want this appeal. This is ridiculous. You're going to waste taxpayer dollars fighting to try and get back a totally illegal and unconstitutional regulation that New Yorkers don't even want. And, I'd like to point out that both Governor Hochul and Letitia James are up for election in November. So, the mainstream media is not picking this up. They're keeping it very quiet because they know it's an election year here in New York. And I think if New Yorkers knew what the governor and Letitia James, our Attorney General, are doing, I think people would be pretty vocal when they go to the polls in November. And I think they would vote these two women out of office, because this is just a complete violation, not just of separation of powers, but of basic human rights.
How do you feel these are, how would you determine these when you talk about ramifications? What would be the ramifications for the average person if this legislation was to pass?
Yeah, so if the appellate division overturns this decision and the governor and Letitia James get their way, then that's going to reinstate this regulation, which means that all of a sudden now the Department of Health will have the power to isolate or quarantine whoever they want. They don't have to prove you have a communicable disease. It does not have to be an emergency. This regulation says they can do this anytime they want. And it's just a power that is unbridled. There's no restraint in this. So you could imagine that opens the door to a lot of corruption. I mean, what if you have, I did a radio interview with Senator George Borrello not too long ago about this topic, and he pointed out, hey, let's say this regulation is reinstated on appeal. Let's say there's somebody that works in the Department of Health. They're not elected. Those are all just bureaucrats who are appointed. They're government employees. Let's say they don't like the boy that their teenage daughter is dating. What's to stop them from saying, oh, I think he's got tuberculosis, or, I think he's got COVID-19, and then all of a sudden there's an order for isolation and quarantine against, the teenage boy. I mean, the amount of possibilities of overstepping the power in this regulation is so broad and so shocking, because there are no restraints. And that breaches the Constitution as well, because you have to have, the Constitution says you have to have what we call due process protections built into our laws and built into our regulations. And Judge Ron Plotz, who issued our decision in this case, he made it very clear. He said this regulation actually violates due process. He said there is no due process in this regulation. It simply gives lip service to due process. So it's very clear this is a highly dangerous, in my opinion, this is a highly dangerous regulation. So it's so important we win this appeal.
Yeah, as we get ready to wrap things up, I just want to ask you the question about the appellate process. How long do you think before you'll hear a decision in the appellate court?
So that's hard to say. The Attorney General, Letitia James, has filed the notice of appeal, so putting us on notice that she is appealing the decision. They have not filed the actual appeal papers yet, so I don't know the basis of their appeal, although I'm sure they're going to argue all the points. But it can take several months. There's not I don't have an exact time frame because I'm not sure exactly when they're going to file those papers, but it could take a few months. So we need to see what comes. And I really would love for your listeners and your viewers to really pay attention to what's going on and pay attention who you're going to vote for in November.
Yeah, Attorney Bobbie Ann Cox, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much. We'll continue to follow this story, and we appreciate having you on with us.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. If anybody wants further information, there is a website specifically set up for this lawsuit at unitingnys.com/lawsuit. People can get information there.
All right. And then also your website as well, coxlawyers.com. So thank you so much for being with us and sharing with us here on Open.
Thank you so much for having me, Daren.
All righty. And we want to let you know, don't go anywhere. We've got more Open coming up right after this. And welcome back. As one of New York City's leading human service organizations, Goddard Riverside builds community, changing lives, and supporting New Yorkers in need through their services. The organization works actually to meet the client's basic needs, such as providing food, shelter, and education, while never failing to celebrate diversity and richness of society. Well, joining us now, we're pleased to have sharing with us is the Executive Director of Goddard Riverside, Rod Jones. And Rod, thank you so much for being with us.
Daren, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, and I know as I told you in the intro, I said a little bit that, I grew up in Harlem, was very familiar with Goddard Riverside, but I'm glad to know that even today, that the organization is still making impact and still reaching so many lives.
Absolutely. We've been around since 1853 and continue to increase in our impact and footprint.
Well, I know that I'm sorry to be the cut you, but one of the things that you really guys focus on is taking the time and making sure that those who are in the homeless population, who are sometimes underserved, have access to services. So share with us a little bit about the work that you're doing in the homeless community.
Absolutely. We have been in this work around making sure that the unhoused have a place to live for decades now, back dating two of my predecessors ago. And we do a variety of things related to ensuring both people who are unhoused have a place, as well as preventing people from becoming unhoused. And so if I had to describe it on a continuum, right, I would start with the preventive first. So we actually have a team of lawyers who do affirmative cases. We're very invested in preserving single room occupancy, which is one of the few affordable housing options for people in New York. If you think about an article that came out in the New York Times where the average one bedroom is $5,000, it's SROs that really provide single room occupancy, that provide people an affordable way to live and maintain housing. And our attorneys continue to work to take affirmative actions against bad landlords who tend to push people out so that they can increase the value of rent, causing more and more people to have to sleep on the street. In addition, we do a lot of work around other kinds of material assistance that help people to sustain themselves by getting them connected to entitlements, public aid, as well as some forms of assistance around utility bills and those other things that affect people's housing stability. And as you know, we do outreach to get homeless people off the street every day, 365 days a year. Rain, snow, or sleet, we're out working to persuade people who are unhoused to come in. And then on the end of the continuum, we actually offer housing ourselves. So we offer safe havens, which are a step above shelter. They're long-term housing that has a collection of support services, psychiatric care, harm reduction to work with people who want to kick drug addiction. We have psychiatrists, physical health staff, and case managers. And so safe havens allow people to stay until we place them in permanent housing. And then we operate a fair number of permanent supportive housing units around Manhattan, in Harlem and in the Upper West Side, really focused on making sure that people have their own tenancy who once lived on the street and that they have the support services necessary to stay living independently.
Yeah. For you, talk to me about what you're seeing right now with the housing crisis and the homeless population. I mean, obviously, COVID has further exacerbated a lot of things, but also the fact that, we look around right now, the eviction moratorium has ended. We're seeing a lot of struggling people in New York City, particularly the city, when it comes to housing.
Yeah, I think that we all anticipated that after the moratorium lifted, that those people who owed significant back rent will be in a battle to meet that obligation. I think that we've seen programs like ERAP help to stabilize some people. However, some people didn't quite make the cut. And then beyond that, there are people who are yet unemployed. And so we are seeing increases in numbers of people who are much more vulnerable, who are now on the street. And then I think there's those who are what we call the chronically homeless. They've been on the street for a significant amount of time. And many of them through COVID have lost some of the basic things that were the last slivers of what we would call, humanity. During that period of time, those people weren't able to find libraries to use the bathroom in, stores were closed. And so now those things are back open. I think that part of the challenge now is that there's an effort to move the unhoused from more of the public spaces and to push them into places where there's suitable housing. And I think what we're finding is that, that the effort is making some headway. However, I think that you got a open spigot on the other side where the vulnerable people are now pouring into the places where people who were chronically unhoused once exist.
Yeah. I want to take a time. I talked about the eviction moratorium, but you also have a program called the No Eviction Law Project. So talk to us a little bit about that and how that works.
Yeah, so the Law Project, which happens to be located in Morningside Heights, which is a part of Harlem, has a team of both lawyers and community organizers. And some people may say, well, why community organizers? Community organizers are a necessary element of our formula because oftentimes you have people who are old or vulnerable populations who essentially don't feel comfortable reporting that the landlord is pushing them out. I'm old enough to remember the days in the South Bronx where the landlords would bring in sex workers and gang members and run people out of buildings. We don't see it quite as bad at that level, but they fail to repair things. They constantly are after the tenants to move out. And so our organizers work to organize an entire building so that there's strength in numbers. And once they've organized an existing building, our lawyers will take affirmative cases to court to make a landlord behave. In addition, our attorneys also do responsive cases where tenants may be in jeopardy of eviction for one reason or the next. They'll take those cases up as well. And so with the introduction of right to counsel, meaning that every person, particularly under a certain income, has a right to have legal counsel in landlord-tenant court. We are part of that movement, and our attorneys do take those cases as well.
And so for yourself, obviously a lot of work that goes on at Goddard Riverside. Where do you see your organization make the most significant impact?
I think, be mindful that as a settlement house, we serve cradle to grave. And I think, quite frankly, all of our programs are impactful in a lot of ways. I think that we can point to places like college access for low-income children. We've been a market leader in that space. I think the same is true for homeless outreach. If you think about some of the strongest housing coalitions like Shinny, they grew out of Goddard Riverside. The Coalition for Homeless Outreach, we were at the early stages of that. We have one of the first SROs, which is permanent supportive housing. We were at the forefront of it. And so I think in those spaces, we're certainly making huge impacts.
For yourself, I also want to get an opportunity to hear you share a little bit about the Green Initiative and the Green Keeper Initiative and the work that's going on there.
So the Green Keepers Initiative is a social enterprise that grew out of our Top Opportunities program. The Green Keepers actually are all people who have a mental health diagnosis. They have some mental health challenge, but they've committed themselves to development. And so we work collectively with them to ensure that they're trained and that they have employment opportunities at a fair wage, at the minimum wage. And so the Green Keepers do a number of things, a number of services to the community. They work collectively in partnerships with a number of the business improvement districts. They also keep the Riverside Park. They do the horticulture work, the planting, as well as the cleaning. Within the beds, they do a lot of the sanitation work. And again, horticulture work, planting, seasonal plantings. They do some of the rerouting of places that are desolate, making sure that they're beautified, like some of the medians. And so that is an opportunity for us to reintroduce them into the place of work, or for some, introduce them the first time to their place of work. And I think overall, to give them a sense that they too can reach their fullest potential, regardless of mental health status.
Well, Rod, certainly I want to take the time, excuse me, tongue-tied there, take the time to thank you for the work that you're doing at Goddard Riverside and improving the community. And as I said, as someone who has lived not too far away, I'm very familiar with Goddard Riverside, and glad to see the impact that you're still making in changing lives and really strengthening people. Thanks so much for being with us.
Great. Thank you so much for having me.
All righty. Rod L. Jones, who is the executive director of Goddard Riverside. Now, if you want more information, please visit the website at goddard.org, and then also follow them on Facebook and Instagram at Goddard Riverside. We are not out of show. We do have more that's going to come. Open will continue coming up right after this. Welcome back to the show. Perfect Pitches by Precious is a brand that's focusing on sales and branding, elevator pitches, media training, from the poverty-stricken streets of St. Louis to the global stage of influence. Our next guest story is about transformation and it's nothing less than iconic, but it's only half the story. She's here now to tell more of her story. She's the CEO of Perfect Pitches by Precious. We've got Precious Williams, and as we get ready to bring her in, I got to say, Precious, first off, I was talking with my producer, and you honestly were the last segment that we did before the pandemic. And so literally in a couple of years' time, things have just dramatically changed for you.
I mean, for real, I mean, hey, you got to go out with a bang before the pandemic, right? You got to come back in with a bang. So yeah, and I had such a great time when we spoke before, and I got even more to tell you now.
Well, glad to have you telling us a little bit more now. So as we talk about now, I mean, let's talk about where you are now. You've been able to take your pitches and your brand elevation to a totally another level.
Definitely. And so I have a book coming out called The Pitch Queen. And as you remember, the last time I spoke with you, I had written 3 #1 best-selling books, The Bad Bee and Power Pitches for Women Entrepreneurs and Speakers Only series, Pitching for Profit. But with The Pitch Queen, I have stepped into another realm of really showcasing for companies, corporations, nonprofits, and foundations, and even those who are seeking media, how to really get it in a totally different way. And so I'm taking people back through my life and giving them stories they've never heard. Some people think I was just homeless and a severe alcoholic, and that was my story. And then breaking through, it's like, no, there were so many stories that happened before that I want to share with others, because my story was not perfect. My pitches are, I am not. And so in this book, I want to inspire. It's not like self-help, but it's kind of part memoir, part inspiration, and showing others you can make every mistake in the world. You can fail a lot of times and still wind up on top, because persistence beats resistance. There's no way I should be where I am today. And with that story, one of the greatest things that has happened is that I'm speaking at BMW on September 1st, 2022. And for those who don't know, September 1st, 2018, I walked out of the Bowery Mission Women's Center. I walked out of homelessness, September 1st, 2018. And 4 years to the day that I did it, I'll be in BMW in South Carolina, gracing the stage in front of thousands and sharing the power of the perfect pitch. And then on top of that, there's a billboard in Atlanta. My billboard for The Pitch Queen is already in Atlanta. I'm receiving a Lifetime Achievement Award in business. I know I'm 43. I get it. I get it. But what I really love about this award is not just my successes, but what I've been able to do behind the scenes for a lot of people, being their secret weapon. And they're coming to honor me. And as you know, I graduated from Spelman College, where Zahara Jolie Pitt is a student. Now I just want to make sure y'all know. And even with being the pitch queen, I had an opportunity to shoot a new television show for entrepreneurs on the West Coast a few months ago. And we're having the premiere on October 7th, tentatively in LA. So I get to walk a red carpet for real. But my journey has been about showing others how to give birth to their next beautiful now. Right now, whether you have a Brazilian butt lift or not, or you got 6-pack abs or not, whether you're older, younger, I want you to take the things that people say are your flaws and make them your secret weapon. And that's what I did to become not only the bad bee with a power pitch, but now the pitch queen.
Well, when you talk about pitch, I want to talk for a minute, because what is, for some people who may not be so familiar, what is the pitch?
Okay, so a pitch is a short, brief way of introducing you, your products, your services, your branding, your business to others, so that you are the only choice that matters when it comes to hiring, booking, promoting, referring, and buying from. And I always give this little, I'm gonna try to do it really, really quickly, but think about it's the holidays, you're going over someone else's house for dinner. You know all the good food that's gonna be there, you're gonna chop it up with your family and friends. You get over there, someone says dinner is served. So you start putting things on your plate. You're excited. You're looking at that plate. Well, look at that plate. Everything on that plate is you, your business, your books, your brand, your product, your service, your network, everything that makes you your skill sets. But when, after Grace has said, whatever you put your first fork in, that is your pitch. So out of that big plate that we all have, so many great things that we have, but a pitch is a juicy morsel, a taste of more to come. And if you give people the right bite, they'll keep eating and eating and eating. So you'll turn a prospect, an ideal prospect, into a client into a repeat client or customer. And so you never give the full meal deal. You give them a bite so they can taste it. And if you captivate and titillate them and show them why you're the only choice that matters, whether you have 30 seconds, 60 seconds, it matters. That's why you have commercials going all the time. That pitch is just a taste of more to come. So if you like that taste, you're going to take another little taste. You got an ebook, you can get them to a book, you can get them to a course, you can get them to one-on-one training, group training, speaking, and things like that. And so again, when you're doing a pitch, which is briefly introducing yourself to get them interested and wanting to go to the next step with you to buy, refer, or hire, remember, are you giving them the plate, which is overwhelming? Are you giving them a taste, a fork? Think about that all the time. Oh, did I give the plate or did I give the fork?
Right. I want to take the time for a moment to just ask you because, as I said, you're the last guest I had before COVID. Here you are.
Mhm.
You got books, you got TED Talk. We'll talk about that in a minute. Got
Oh, TED
got
Talk, yes.
hosted show, got Billboard. So what did COVID do for you?
You know what? COVID was actually very great for my business. Honestly, it was. See, there were so many people who let the news tell them that it was over, their store, that everything was over. And I admit some places had brick and mortar, and so they couldn't be open. But what I've learned in my journey from homelessness to where I've been today is that money is still made, impact is still being had. So where others retreated, I didn't retreat, I went full force. And so where others were backing up, I'm going to the fight. And so what I was able to do was get into the Googles, the LinkedIn's, the Microsofts, the Federal Reserve Bank, the Intuit, QuickBooks of the world and other nonprofits and foundations and really showcase what I can do for them in the pandemic. And so I went from the clients that I already had to speaking on bigger stages. I was doing a lot of virtual training, paid virtual training, didn't even leave the house, but doing that paid virtual training, because I had a lot of speaking engagements that, they were trying to cancel. I said, well, can we do it virtually? I'll bring the energy, the funk, and the noise. And I did. And by doing that, we tripled our revenue in the pandemic. I also won a number of awards for the work that I was able to do for my clients. I told you 7 of my clients have been on Shark Tank and successfully funded. Not only that, some of my other clients have won $250,000, $500,000, even $1 million in pitch competitions. And finally, for speakers, I started this training called Booked and Busy Speakers Boot Camp, because a lot of people ask speakers to speak for free. However, if you know your zone of genius and you know how to take yourself apart from what everybody else is doing, that's worthy of being paid. And how do you package, position, and pitch? And that's what I learned in the pandemic. It's not that I just great at pitching, but how do I package, position you in front of the right playground and sandbox so that the VIPs and others can notice you, and now pitch to them in the language that they understand, that they know you are the only choice that matters to handle this particular problem. And also be on your Kanye. Don't ever let them box you in to a particular place. So we tripled our revenue, and even now, bigger and bigger deals are on the table. Like, I didn't think I would be the pitch trainer and a co-host of a national television show debuting, and to be there with all these billionaires, multimillionaires, and just think they chose me. Why? Because I was the only choice that mattered when it came to pitching.
Wow. So for you, what's it like now, looking back and saying, I've been through this. I know what it's like to be homeless. And now I know what it's like to be in front of corporate America at the top of the food chain, if you will. For you, the journey, what's it feel like at this stage?
The journey feels incredible, honestly. There are times when I cry because I had a 10-year plan in my mind that 4 years we just pushed past into 20, whatever my 20-year vision is. What makes me cry also is that my clients are succeeding beyond their wildest dreams. In fact, just this past week, David Meltzer, who hosts 2 Minute Drill and Office Hours, he was in Times Square. I brought one of my clients to meet him. It was pouring rain. I was getting ready to ask a question, and then I said to my client, step up, pitch to him right now. She pitched her film idea in the pouring rain. People were so shocked, clapping and all those sort of things. And I said, that's what you do. It's not enough for me to be successful, but for my clients to do it. And no matter what's against you, rain, all sorts of things, you still got to have your eyes on the prize. And I'm proud to be an entrepreneur, a Black woman, a full-figure diva, who's showing that you do not have to look, sound, and act like everybody else to make it. You don't have to be in entertainment. You don't have to be in sports, but if you're doing that, great too. But all of us have a zone of genius that we can impact the world with. And by, just solving real problems, your bank account has no choice but to expand.
Yeah. So if people want to get in touch with you and really continue to see the work that you're doing, or actually tap into how to improve their actual life, their business, what do they do?
Yes. So my contact information, again, everybody, I'm Precious Williams, proud founder and CEO of Perfect Pitches by Precious, #Killer Pitch Master, #the Pitch Queen. My website is www.perfectpitchesbyprecious.com. We also have another website called www.perfectpitchgroup.com, because we're changing, and there you can get my hand-signed copy of my fourth book, The Pitch Queen. On Twitter, I'm at Perfect Pitch P. On Facebook, I'm at Perfect Pitch P. And on Instagram, I am at Perfect Pitches P. And if you go back to my website, www.perfectpitchesbyprecious.com, you can see how you can work one-on-one with me, have a consultation with me, how you can see the free things that we offer, from our free quiz at pitchingforprofit.com. Take our free quiz, 6 questions, and you'll get a customized report to show you how to step your game up. And it's free, 99 free. And finally, I'm just excited to get to know you all. So if you need help with your pitch, if you want to know how to #slay all competition with a killer pitch, come check me out at perfectpitchesbyprecious.com. I am Precious Williams, the Pitch Queen, 13-time National Elevator Pitch Champion, and showing you where the money resides.
As always, it is a pleasure to see you. I'm glad to see you. I mean, as I said before, sometimes you see people after the pandemic and you can say, oh my God, it's really affected them in a bad way. But to see you and to see all that's going on, your smile, your energy, you're there, and the work that you've been able to do and the impact that you're making. So glad to have you, Precious Williams. You got to come back. And
I'm going to come back, and thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
Yes, you have a wonderful day too. And want to let you know, stay tuned to us. We got more show. Open will continue coming up right after this. And welcome back. The Poets Network and Exchange announced its annual Bronx Book Fair, and the book fair is dedicated to engaging and growing community of poets and writers in the Bronx and connecting readers of book love, as well as book lovers, I should say, of all ages. Now, joining us to share more details is the executive director of the Bronx Book Fair, Lorraine Currelley, and we thank you so much for being with us, Lorraine.
Thank you for having me.
Again, an exciting time as we are connecting book lovers. And what you got for us this year?
Well, what we have for you this year is more exciting programming. just to mention some of the wonderful things and exciting things that will be happening, we have a women's author panel, the National Writers Union panel. We have a Bronx Library Center's librarians panel, and we have children's programming for the duration of the fair starting at 12 noon. We also have our wonderful moderators representing the Bronx and other locations, Edward Currelley, Maria Aponte, George Wallace, Robert Anthony Gibbons, as well as Debbie Tucson Kilday. Among the poets that we have, some of the poets, we actually have combined over 40 poets reading this year, reading and performing. We have Tim and Deedle Tomlinson, Makila B. Amani, Eileen Klein, Ron Whitehead, Prince A. McNally, Yokeri Talveres, Jesus Papalito Melendez, Bobbie Gonzalez, Roxanne Hoffman, and again, Edward D. Currelley, he'll be reading as well as facilitating, William F. DeVolt, John Burroughs. So we have quite a few. I could just go on and on with the list, because as I stated, we have over 40 poets and spoken word artists participating.
And this also gives you an opportunity to really engage poets and artists at another level. What's it mean for you to be able to have these poets and artists be able to participate in this event?
The wonderful thing about it, since the pandemic, we're just delighted and thrilled that we've been able to continue our programming, our annual Bronx Book Fair. So we're doing it, this is a virtual event. It's virtual. And the wonderful thing that has been happening, Daren, is that because it's virtual, we're able to engage with a larger audience. So we are global as well. We're local, national, and we're global. So the world is being represented, not only with participation by attendees, but also artists as well, representing such places as Greece, France, Spain, Puerto Rico, just all different locations. And this is very, very exciting. And as I say, we're thrilled that we've been able to continue. We were determined not to be deterred by the pandemic. So this is wonderful and exciting for us.
And so for Bronxites and those across New York City, an opportunity to be able to watch virtually, what do they need to do? And is there a registration fee? Give us that.
What we're doing, we have had attendees to register in the past, but what we're going to do, we're going to try something new, and that's not have them necessarily register at all, but at a certain time, we're just going to put up the meeting ID number and the password. The chances are we're probably just going to have them put up the information, Zoom information for them just to register, and they'll automatically get the meeting ID and the password. So we'll probably go with that, but there's a chance, we're just putting it out there, that we may go the other route. So we're exploring that. But anyway, they'll be able to participate and locate us because we're putting our links, we're putting everything on social media, our Facebook group, our Twitter. So they'll have links everywhere that all they have to do is just click and they're in.
That's it. So what do you hope people take away from this experience?
We're hoping that what everyone takes away from this experience, a feeling of community, enrichment, and unity. And since the pandemic, that we're not alone. We're all busy trying to navigate this new way of living. But we want them to take away hope and joy, a sense of resiliency, and just happiness, and that we're there for them. We love our community and we're here for them.
And so as you look to
But that's what we do all the time.
Yeah, well, as you look to last year and you saw what happened last year, now you take a look at this year. What's the difference between the two last year and this year, and what would you like to see happen?
Well, you know what? Every year is so different. We grow every year, and new people come into our lives, new attendees and new participants. So there's always a sense of growth, and we're learning how to navigate this whole technology. So we're constantly, which is good, we're constantly growing. And the wonderful thing is the community, our community grows with us. We're all in this together. We're the People's Book Fair. We're always growing together, and they're very supportive. We're supportive. They lift us up. We lift them up. And this is not a Poets Network and Exchange Bronx Book Fair. This is the People's Bronx Book Fair. So we're all working this together. And before I forget and time runs out, I want to just say that the Bronx Book Fair is happening this year on August the 13th from 12 noon to 7 p.m. That's August the 13th from 12 noon to 7 p.m. And what we're doing to lift off the Bronx Book Fair on Friday night from 6 to 8, we're inviting the community in via Zoom because we're having an award ceremony for the legendary poet Ngoma Hill. So he's receiving the Poets Network and Exchange first Lifetime Achievement Award. So we're excited about that. And all you need to go to our social media, and you go to Bronx Book Fair or Poets Network and Exchange, and all the information is up everywhere. So we're really excited, and we thank BronxNet, we thank you, we thank Patricia Bird as well for inviting us here so that we can share this information with the community. So
well, we're glad
everyone will be able to connect.
Sorry for cutting you, but I want to let you know we're glad to have you. Best wishes with the Bronx Book Fair. We got to leave it there, but thank you so much for being with us.
And thank you. It's always a joy to be back at home with the BronxNet TV. And you,
a joy to have you.
Jaime. Thank you.
Thank you.
We hope to see you. We hope to see all of you. And Bronx forever. Bronx.
Stay Bronx strong. That's it.
Okay.
We want to let our viewers know that if you want more information, listen, you can follow them on Twitter and Facebook at Bronx Book Fair. Gotta let you know we are out of time and out of show, but listen, thank all of our guests for joining us. Also, you, the viewer, for tuning in. If you missed any part of the Recablecast, or I should say the show, you can catch the Recablecast on Bronx, that's channel 67. If you have also Verizon Files, that's channel 2133, or anytime on the web at bronxnet.org. And if you're looking for a brand new episode of Open, don't hesitate to check us out on Friday with Rita Valentine. She comes on with the best of arts and entertainment Friday morning. And we want to tell you, make sure you keep this channel wide open. I'm Daren Jaime saying take care, God bless, and thank you for watching. We'll see you real soon.